Have you ever had a dream that felt so real? You weren't sure if you were actually asleep, a nightmare that bled into your waking life. In the early 2000s, an anonymous internet user shared a story that has haunted readers ever since. It was a story about a place called the theater, a place you can only get to when you're dreaming. It always started the same way. The user would wake up in the dead of night, not in their bed, but standing in their hallway. An unseen force would compel them to walk downstairs. And there, in their familiar living room, stood something impossible. An old wooden door with peeling paint, a door that simply didn't exist when they were awake. Every time, they felt an irresistible urge to open it, and every time, they found themselves in the theater. It was a small, derelict cinema, the kind that time had forgotten. Rows of dusty, faded red seats faced a blank, white screen. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and decay, and something else. Something foul, like rotten meat. A few dim lights flickered erratically overhead, casting long, dancing shadows. In the oppressive silence, they could hear breathing, a slow, raspy sound that was definitely not their own. Scattered throughout the seats were 9 figures. They were humanoid in shape, slumped in their chairs, completely motionless. They just sat there, staring intently at the blank screen. Their faces were always cloaked in shadow, impossible to make out, but the user could feel their collective awareness. It was a chilling, predatory feeling. They knew they were being watched. A set of rules instantly formed in their mind, as if broadcast directly into their thoughts. Never, ever sit down, and never stay. Too long. With each visit to this dream world, their curiosity battled their fear, and they would explore just a little bit further. Behind the blank screen, they discovered a long, dark hallway lined with more doors. Each door opened into a different, unsettling scene. One room was a child's bedroom, but the wallpaper was shredded. The walls covered in frantic scratch marks from floor to ceiling. Another door led to a grimy, abandoned operating room, where rusted surgical instruments were laid out as if waiting for a patient. Then there was the flooded basement, where something large and unseen moved just beneath the murky surface of the water. But the most terrifying part wasn't the rooms. It was the audience. Every time the dream repeated, the number of figures in the theater grew, and worse, they were slowly, almost imperceptibly, turning their heads. With each dream, their shadowy faces were angled a little more towards the user, as if their attention was being drawn away from the screen and onto the intruder. Then one night, the dream changed drastically. The user had just entered the theater when one of the figures, one of the original 9, stood up. It moved with jerky, unnatural motions, like a marionette with tangled strings. Its face was still a void of shadow, but as it shuffled closer, its hands came into view. They were pale and waxy, with fingers that were disturbingly elongated, ending in dirty, broken nails. A primal fear took over. The user spun around and ran for the exit, for that impossible wooden door. But the theater had changed. The door was gone. The room was now a vast, cavernous space, the rows of red seats stretching on into an endless, dark horizon. And from behind them, a new sound echoed through the silence. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, and getting closer. They woke up with a blood-curdling scream, tangled in their sheets, their heart hammering against their ribs. It was just a dream, they told themselves. Just a horrible, vivid nightmare. But that's when their blood ran cold. When they finally calmed down enough to get out of bed and go downstairs that morning, they noticed something on the soles of their feet. Dust. A fine, gray dust that smelled faintly of mildew. Theater. Deuced. As if that wasn't terrifying enough, they reached into the pocket of their pajama pants and pulled out a small, torn piece of paper. It was a movie ticket stub, brittle with age, for a matinee showing at the Orpheum Grande Theater that, after some frantic research, they discovered had been demolished in 1963. The dream was no longer just a dream. It was real. It was reaching into their world. Terrified of falling asleep, the user tried to stay awake for as long as they could. They drank coffee until their hands shook, They kept the lights on all night, but eventually, exhaustion is a battle no one can win. They passed out on their sofa, and they returned. They were standing on the stage of the theater, facing the audience. All the figures, now numbering over a dozen, were standing. And they were all facing them directly, a silent, waiting congregation of shadows. But the worst part, the detail that shattered the user's sanity, was a new addition to the audience. In a seat that had always been empty, right in the center of the front row, sat a new figure. It was slumped forward, motionless, staring at the blank screen, just like the others. And it looked exactly like them. The user's final online post was short and filled with despair. They wrote, "I don't think it's a dream anymore. I think the theater is a real place, a pocket dimension that feeds on its visitors. Every time I go there, I leave a small piece of myself behind. I'm afraid that one day, I won't wake up. I'll just become another figure in a seat, watching nothing forever." After that message, their account went silent. They were never heard from again. What's truly unsettling is that, since this story first appeared, others have come forward. They report similar dreams, always describing the same decaying theater, the same 9 original figures, and the same impossible door that appears in their homes. Some paranormal enthusiasts theorize that the theater is a liminal space, a trap existing in the fragile veil between waking and sleeping, and it collects the souls of those who visit too often. So, a word of warning. If you have a dream of a door in your home that shouldn't be there, a door that feels both strange and familiar, whatever you do, don't open it. And if you do, and you find yourself in a decaying theater filled with a silent audience, run. Run before the show starts, and before you take a permanent seat and become part of the attraction. Thanks for watching. If you have any stories about dreams that felt too real, share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more dives into the unexplained. Sleep well.